Welcome to the March 26, 2026 Joint Measure E and G Oversight Committee meeting. City meetings may be observed live on the Salinas channel on YouTube, Zoom, or Comcast channel 25.
Zoom webinar participation is available for members of the public. The Zoom webinar ID and link are available and posted on the agenda on the city website. Let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Clerk, please call the roll for Measure E committee.
Committee Member Fregoso. Committee Member Ish. Committee Member Valenzuela. Chair Hobby.
Present.
Thank you.
Clerk, please call the roll for the Measure G committee.
Committee Member Field. Committee Member Mendoza. Committee Member Noroyan. Committee Member Salmina.
Here.
Committee Member Salai. Chair Sandoval.
Here.
Thank you.
Public comment procedures. Public comments are restricted to items on the special meeting agenda pursuant to California Government Code Section 54954.3b. The public may comment on the scheduled agenda item as they are considered. We will hold public comment until then. Public comment open? Yes.
Hi, good afternoon. Jose Guerra, Montevideo Community.
Mr. Guerra, since this is a special meeting, we don't have general public comment. Your public comment would be at the time of the item that we're presenting.
My
Correct.
apologies, yeah.
Yeah, correct. Yeah,
So-
no, I heard him.
Yeah, so we don't have general public comment, so you would have to wait until the item that you
Oh.
wish
Yeah, that was
wish
my
the public
apologies. I
comment
said
on.
yeah. I said yeah. That was my
Thank
fault.
you.
Yeah, he was, yeah, he got it.
Sorry, guys. I'm a rookie.
Now we'll move forward to administrative reports. ID number 26122, Measure G, extension and ballot measure polling results. We will now receive a report from Patricia M. Soratos, City Clerk, and will introduce Adam Provalski Research, and William Berry Campaigns.
Good afternoon, members of the public, Chair and Measure G and Measure E Oversight Committee. So it is our pleasure to be here with you today to present the results for the tax measure survey that was just recently conducted. But before I do that, I just want to give you a brief overview of kind of what has transpired to this point. So the Measure G revenue has been previously discussed as part of the budget process, and in particular, the challenges that the city may face to reduce the city budget by approximately $47 million. Since the passage of Measure G in 2014, the 1 cent sales tax has been a foundational part of service delivery for the city of Salinas. Some of the services that the city has provided as part of Measure G, which help fund a number of city positions totaling 106.5 full-time positions across all city departments to provide services and support public safety, city infrastructure, neighborhood services such as parks and recreation. The ballot measure polling, public outreach, and discussion related to placing the Measure G extension on the ballot in November 2026 has been discussed with the Finance Committee in October of last year, October 14 of last year. With the Measure G Oversight Committee, there was a brief overview on January 16th of this year, and more recently with our City Council this past Tuesday. The City Council did vote to move forward with staff recommendation to go back to the City Council at a future meeting date to call the election and place this measure on the November ballot. At this point, I would like to introduce Adam Provalski of Provalski Research LLC and William Berry Campaigns, who will share the results. We have Adam on Zoom with us today, and William is here in person. They'll show the results of the scientific ballot polling survey of likely November 2026 voters.
Thank
I'll let
you,
you start,
Patricia.
Adam.
Can everybody hear me okay? I guess I'll have someone advance the slides since you're presenting here. So we can go to the methodology slide, which is next, and I'll share the way we go about doing this kind of survey. It's a very typical process that is done hundreds of times across the state of California and across the country. And this is the process that public agencies go through when they're putting something on the ballot. Public agencies cannot advocate, but they can certainly research and identify what the public is looking for and how to be responsive to them. And that's part of the reason the poll is done. We talk to people in English and Spanish. 20% of your likely voters chose to talk to us in Spanish, whether that was online or on the phone. And we have this really inclusive process of talking to people in all the ways they talk and communicate to the world. So we talk to them on the phone, including their landlines and their mobile phones. And then online, we email and text them to bring them to the online survey experience. And so really everyone has the chance to participate. No one's left behind. And our job is to exactly match the profile of the likely voter turnout. So that's by age and gender and ethnicity and party, geography, and all those things that exactly match that profile. And 400 is a very robust number of responses. It may not sound like that, right? Big town like Salinas, but to give you some perspective, statewide, we would do 900 or 1,000 and have the same predictive ability. And this is not a boast of us or of William's work and our work, but every single time we've done this over time, but certainly since 2024, 25, a dozen different times for a dozen different agencies, we've predicted the outcome accurately. So it's a process that works, math works, and we will go into the numbers, but I just want to make sure everybody understands that this is accurate to the moment. High quality of life overall, 81% say good or fair. We don't put a value judgment on fair. Fair is okay. It's the way it's supposed to be. And more importantly, you have less than 20% say it's poor. So really strong numbers indicating people are happy with the overall quality of life in the city. Next, we have a question that we asked them about the services the city provides. And here we see a little bit of a difference. We see more people saying unsatisfied than satisfied, but it's, kind of mixed. And it's okay for some people to be unsure because they're just not thinking about the city. They're thinking about their house, their lives, their kids, their soccer game, their church, and it's not really a factor about what the city's up to. So it's okay for some people to be unsure. All right, we'll keep going and we'll talk about emergency services provided by the fire and paramedic, and really strong numbers, 74%. And this is where I explain that this is not an academic exercise. We're not trying to get, 95% or A plus. 74% is not a C or a C minus. This is a scenario where most people, we don't agree on things in America. And so having 50% plus one is a strong number. It gets you where you need to be. Having 74% is really, really big. The other way we look at this is that delta between the 9% that's unsatisfied and the 24% that are satisfied. Those are really big, big differences. That's how we look at these numbers. Next, we look at police. Numbers are a little closer together, but still almost 2 to 1. Satisfied over unsatisfied. And again, people aren't so sure, some people, and once we maybe talk to a little more about this, they may be more likely to be satisfied. All right, we'll keep going, talking about maintenance of streets and streetlights and stormwater drainage and public works sort of a category. We see here what will become a theme throughout the survey, where we really have a clear sense that people are looking for change and looking for improvement to these things. So clearly this is a big focus area for the city. Next, we have talking about open space, trails, recreation facilities, community programs. There's a general satisfaction with this. There's more than a third who say they're not happy, but you have a strong majority who say they are satisfied. And I'll say this, that if we had the opportunity to do this survey again in 2 years or 4 years or 6 years, whatever it might be, and the city had all the resources they would typically have for these programs, could you potentially see this number at 59% or 62% or something like that? Yeah. It's very unlikely that any of these numbers shift where you have like 99% are satisfied with things like that. You're never going to make everyone satisfied with things. And it's just not the way public opinion works when it comes to public policy and things like this. So I want to put that into perspective. I'm not trying to paint the rosiest picture in the world, but I just want to make it clear. All right, next we asked them to agree or disagree. Does the city operate transparently? And majority says no. And this is a challenge for those of us who work in government or for government, especially because we know everything is public. Every single salary, every single expenditure, everything is voted on in public. And so it's a little bit hard for us to kind of understand this. But the truth is, most people aren't really engaged in that process. You have an engaged audience today, but most people in town aren't coming to city council meetings or commission meetings. And so there is a national narrative that we're all hearing, doesn't matter if you're listening to the right or the left media, that says that government is not to be trusted. And so that's a lot of what these numbers represent, not necessarily some understanding or some expectation that Salinas is not being transparent. It's more of a national perspective than it is a local one. Next, we ask him this question that really is heartening because it basically says, look, if we spend money today on infrastructure, it's going to be less costly than it is in the future. And we all know inflation happens and costs go up, and your voters entirely understand this message. They totally get it. They can relate to their own lives. They have the ability to make a home improvement today. They know it's going to be cheaper than it is, 6 months or 2 years from now. So this is a really strong way to talk about what you can accomplish with revenues that come in today versus, in the future. All right, need for more resources. This is kind of an interesting question because the public recognizes that there's a need for more resources, more funds at City Hall for services and facilities. And so they've already 2/3 have already kind of decided that, yeah, there's a need and there's places where those monies could be spent. So that's kind of helpful in this conversation. Next, we can look at two questions. The first one says, what's important to you personally? And the second one says, what are you personally satisfied with? And you can see the dark bar there, part of the bar is importance. It's important to me personally. And then the lighter blue is I'm satisfied with it. And you can see the orange shows the delta between satisfaction and importance. And so what you can see clearly is at the top there are maintaining streets and sidewalks. And this is a list we prescribed. We gave them, so they chose as many as they wanted. So you can see streets and sidewalks really, really high and big delta. There's a lot of room for improvement there. Similarly, homelessness. All the other things have, kind of differences between important and satisfaction, but less so than those two at the very top. And so clearly possible opportunities for improvement. Okay. Next, we'll look at a question where we ask the ballot question. And this is what we call the ballot label. This is an approximation of what would actually be in front of you all as you're sitting at your kitchen table filling out your ballot. And so it talks about 1% sales tax. It says we're not going to be raising any taxes, just basically staying the way it is. And we can address all these necessary programs and citizen oversight, all the factors that come into play. And you have 61% saying they're voting yes, 21 no, and 18% unsure. So what this says is you have a very strong majority. All you need is 50% plus one to pass a general tax like this. Very strong majority saying that they are on board and they want to support this tax. If we go next, we can see some messages, and there's This is, by the way, an executive version of our presentation. There's a lot more data. Happy to dive into that through staff if anybody wants more detail. But we give them several messages to talk about what positive things might be said about this ballot measure and what negative things might be said. And that's our responsibility, is to kind of play this out in the public sphere as to what might really happen, to give you a real perspective. And so you see there's the independent engineers report talking about the need, right? Streets are getting D grades, 66% more likely to support the ballot measure, the tax based upon that. Every dollar generated stays in Salinas. Nobody can take it. 62% more likely. And you can see successive messages, all of them either majority or near majority, making people more likely to support it, knowing the details of what the tax would entail. We also look at some negative messages about the cost burden and the current rising prices and the fact that people might think that this should have been temporary. And clearly there are people who are moved by that to be less likely to support it. But none of those negative messages achieve anywhere near what the positive messages deliver. And again, the city isn't in the business of advocating, but all these things are kind of fact-based. The ones in the positive are all fact-based information. The negative ones are a little bit more charged. And part of that is our expectation that someone might stand up and say something negative, and we want to know what that impact would be. So after all these questions and information, we ask again what would happen if the vote was today, and there's basically a similar number, lose a couple points, but the number is still a very strong majority. And what this tells us is, even if there is an organized opposition, it wouldn't really have much impact, because the public really wants what this tax will deliver, continuing this tax will deliver. They want the services, the voters want the facilities. And then I'm happy to share with you kind of the demographics. And there's a little bit of a challenge here, because I want to make sure everybody understands what this looks like. This is not what Salinas looks like. This is what your likely voters look like. And right, you're much more Latino, and you're much younger, and you have an equal number of residents in every one of the council districts. You just don't have voters in the same proportions as you do residents. So that's why these numbers look a little bit different. We were very accurate in the demographics for the profile we were looking for. So I know that was a lot of information. I think I did it pretty quick. But I'm happy to take questions through staff, and certainly available infinitely through staff to answer anything I can do.
Thank you, Adam. And for the committee, we're available for questions. So both Adam and William are here if you have any questions. And then we also have our just kind of our core executive team, our executive staff here as well for questions.
Any questions from Measure E committee? That'll be myself. I don't have any questions. It was a really good presentation. I do more of a comment. 400 participants seems like a small pool. And I was just curious if there was on the demographics, and that was presented at the end. So thank you.
Sure. Okay, we're going to move from questions from Measure G committee. Keep in mind, we do have a separate section for comments. So please reserve this only for questions. Committee member Field? Any questions?
No questions, but I will have comments.
Okay. Committee member Mendoza?
No questions.
Okay. Committee member Salamina?
No questions.
Okay. Committee member, oh man, I'm going to butcher your name. Zalai, my apologies. Yeah.
Sure. Slide 15. Can you pull that up by any chance? So why, after informing your sample, did the resistance go up, do you think?
Adam, I'll let you go. I think they were presented with both positive and negative statements about the renewal. Those negative statements were some of the last things they heard before the second vote question. So I think maybe that had something to do with it. Adam?
Yeah, we gave more detail, positive and negative. And yes, I think they are being responsive to something that they heard that made them uncomfortable with it or unhappy with it. Small number of people changed, but as you give more information, people are gonna, make their mind up differently. So it's a part of the job that we have is to test, and yes, a few people change their minds.
And it's also within the margin of error.
My last question is, the proposed ballot language, where did it come from, and why did you choose these 10 things to put in there?
I'll have Adam answer that specifically, but we worked with city staff and on drafting some of the language. Adam?
Again, I'll go back to Salinas is unique, and so I don't want to put everybody else on you, but it's a very typical set of words to use in sales tax measures all over the state. And there's some differences, nuances based upon the community, but that's kind of where we start at with these kind of typical services, and then we kind of tweak it a little bit based upon the community. So yeah, it was a collective effort between William and I and staff, and it doesn't have to be exactly this language on the ballot. Based upon the data from the survey, I expect that we will propose some changes to the language, and then city attorney is really who has to write it. City attorney is the one that has to make the final call on that, because there's prescribed ways that has to happen.
Okay, that's all I have.
The resolution is going to come before the city. Will that include the language that's going to be in the proposed measure?
The 75-word ballot label, yes, it will.
Okay. So the one when the city decides, if the city council decides to move forward, that resolution itself that they'll pass will have include the language within that resolution? Okay.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. That was my question. Sorry. We are now open for public comments on this item.
Hi, good afternoon, Jose Garramont community. I have a couple, I guess it's just, we need this to pass. I mean, our city needs to function. I do understand that. It's just, I see a lack of transparency, and I'm gonna start with the survey, because you're doing 400 surveys for 160,000 people. We probably have more than that now. You're at 0.0025% of the population that answered that survey, and which I didn't get one. I wish I would have. How did you also said you went to, at the meeting on Tuesday, to voters. We went out to the voters and got voter information. Did you account for Republican and Democrat, or you just do all Democrat? Or I'm asking because I don't get anything.
Well,
for some reason.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's just public comment. You don't answer
Fair
questions. The other thing was, the park's 53%. I know it's higher than that because I live in Montevilla, and our park has got to be in the 80s on dissatisfaction, just our park. I'm sure everybody else is close to that. The street sweepers got to be the 80s and 90s also. No one's happy there. I am. I mean, I do a lot of my own maintenance there. I don't have to, have the street sweeper clean up my stuff. So I'm okay with that. City transparency, 53%, that's way off. That's got to be in the 70s or 80s, easy. And infrastructure, that's got to be 100. Because if you go drive down all these streets and you go, especially at night, you can't see what lane you're in. Those things are very important. Sidewalks, you can't even walk on some of them. They're broken. The streets are really bad. Resources, great. I saw it today. I got kids running through the park on electric bikes and ATVs when we can have resources. Instead of giving money away to like Don Chapin for a Welcome Center, things like that, we should spend our money on our children here. I mean, honestly, the Welcome Center can wait. He's got plenty of money. He can do his own thing. Let's do stuff for our kids. That's what we need. I mean, this needs to pass, I know, but I'm a little skeptic about it. I'm going to support it, but you guys got to help me. God bless you guys.
Good afternoon. My name is Eric Peterson, and as background, I was on the committees that got both of these passed. I have a request and a comment. The request is of the consultants. If you could get more into the nuts and bolts of polling techniques and likely voters we had a lot of people at the city council meeting the other night who didn't seem familiar with those concepts. I learned about polling in a master's program. Not everybody gets to go to a master's program. I learned about likely voters as a candidate. Not everybody gets to be a candidate. And there's a lot to them that hasn't been covered yet. The comment, and this gets back to when I was on the committees, and it also involves my good friend Al Espindola, the late Al Espindola. We were both on them both. Al was treasurer of one. And after the election, we got talking, and we decided that neither one of us could support what we had just got passed in the future because of the oversight, the lack of suitable oversight. In several ways, a big one is I've heard over the last few years numerous complaints from members of your committees about inability to get the information you want. And there has to be a better way to get information to the committee. And there has to be something as carved in stone as possible about a number of meetings. Because mandating one meeting a year, which is what the wording says, doesn't cut it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Are there any comments on Zoom? Okay, I think we have Chad.
Hello, yeah. Name's Chad, go by Royal Wendy, New Salinas resident. Can you hear me? Yeah?
Yeah,
Hello?
we can hear you. We can hear you. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. So I moved here, yeah, from the UK, and I'm having trouble with the missus. I got me come pull a bum, and she won't help me out. And I just don't know what to do. I've been watching Alex B, and Connor Wood won't help me either. And so I'm trying to get the guys from Tesco's to help me out. But nobody seems to help me out there with the come me bum. And I'm wondering what the council could do about this. Thanks, mate. Mr. Raw Wendy.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any other public comments on Zoom? Seeing as none, move forward. Thank you.
Now we'll move forward with comments from Measure E Committee. The only comment I have is, like I mentioned earlier, the 400 participants, that seems like a really small pool. And it would be maybe in future presentations to show what the methods were to deploy the surveys and the different avenues, just to get a better idea. And maybe if there's a different method to reach more residents in Salinas.
Okay. Comments from Measure G committee members? Committee member Field?
Committee Member Fields, may you turn on your mic?
Oh, I thought, okay, sorry, I thought it was on. So the 160,000, as was mentioned, approximately 50% of this town is under 18, so they can't vote. So that brings it down to 75,000 people. And it's likely voters, not actual voters, because we can go to the registrar of voters and get the people who voted in the last elections. I've done it. I've gotten people who have voted in the last 2 presidential elections, and you can skew it other ways. So I don't think 400 people is enough. I also realized that in the notes here, again, as in a lot of surveys, District 3 is the majority of people polled. Well, we have 6 districts. I was not polled, and I voted in every single election in the 30-plus years I've been here. My second comment is I'm originally, as we mentioned in October and January meetings, Measure G was originally promoted to the voters as police and fire, libraries, park and rec, and roads. Roads meaning actual roads, not bike lanes, not public transportation. And it is now morphed over the years into 30 other things. Some of those are written in here. So that concerns me, and I do understand that it's a general tax, so how it is promoted is not necessarily how it is used. I do understand also that we do need this, but I'm still dismayed, as I mentioned on Tuesday, that there's no sunset date. I don't think that we should continue putting things on forever. Those are my comments.
Committee Member Mendoza?
Yes, I can only assume that this is going to be a random sample of the populations, the 400. Was that a measurable outcome that was your target to reach for that sample population? So was that target? How many people were called? You know, I'm wondering for that target. That's what I'm wondering. But I do think it's from the data, what we're looking at, it looks like it is it's a solid number for the representation of who would vote. It's only a sample. It's only a sample. It's only a sample of the population. It doesn't mean that not everybody was called. I'm sure there was quite a few people that were reached to achieve that number. So I'd like to see, you know, I don't know if this could be reported, but how many of those people were actually contacted before we got those responses that we ended up getting. So I have.
Committee Member Salomina?
I agree with everybody of what they have said about what we're looking for. As far as polling, we should really work harder to get our registered voters out there to do the polling. However, with the 400 people that did vote, I do feel that is an accurate representation of what really needs to be addressed, right? So having the opportunity to look at the agenda and the information prior to coming here, it shows what our top priorities are, right? So I'm just going to go down and go over those. Our top priority would be streets and infrastructure, lighting, right? That's number one. People are wanting to spend more money. We should be spending 35 to 45% of Measure G funds specifically towards streets, lighting, and that situation. We need to fix what people see daily. This is how Measure G is going to get reapproved. That's how you're going to see transparency, and this is what we should have from our city staff recommending moving forward. Number two, it's the encampment response and cleanup, transitional shelter, mental health addiction services, and prevention programs. We should be spending probably 20 to 25% of that money to go towards those. That's something that we will continue to see daily as well. Number three, we need to maintain fire and EMS and the police department. That means do not cut anything that they're getting now. So we cannot take any of that money and reduce it because it's proving that it's working. So we need to make sure that they still have those funds. So we should be allowing 15 to 20% to maintain what we have there. Number four, we need to increase affordable housing, streamline approvals, partner with public-private partnerships, and preserve what affordable maintenance that we're doing. So 10 to 15% of Measure G funds should be going into that area. Lastly, it's going to be parks and the quality of life. We have about 5% that should be going to parks and quality of life. I'm not saying everybody's going to agree with me, but this is just my calculation and my figures from what I'm seeing from the 400 people who have voted. Lastly, as far as what the city can do and how this is going to be really helpful, it's transparency. Everybody knows where we need to be at transparency, and maybe we all need to bring forward to something where we think that may help, right? Maybe having a public dashboard, right, available on the city's website. This would be showing how Measure G money is spent. This would be available for people to take a look at and see. This is something that maybe we can update quarterly, right? So that this will be helpful, and then the city showing what they're doing. We know the city's doing a lot of work. People are just not seeing it. Then maybe do a little before and after, right? Another quality project provided by Measure G. That would be something that would just show people what we're really, really doing, because the city's working hard on what we're working at. So I think it's just showing that transparency, and then really maybe our board recommending to council saying, hey, this is how much money should be going towards this, and this is what we need to see from you. That's all my comments. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Salai?
So the most troubling part of this to me is the transparency slide that showed only 32% of our citizens felt that the city was operating in a transparent way. And that's a trust issue. And I think it stems from the underuse of the committees that we have. And the whole reason that we had committee oversight is for transparency and accountability. And because these committees have been underused, I think people have questions about whether money is being spent as it was promised. And because the ballot measure is such a laundry list approach, this is the one that was used to sell the one that we have right now, to improve our quality of life, maintain and enhance city services and facilities, including crime and gang prevention, neighborhood policing and school safety, safety inspections, police, fire, paramedic response, fixing potholes, streets and sidewalks, recreation and programs for youth and seniors, and other city services, so forth and so on. And so now some of that is going to be moved forward, and there's going to be some new stuff in there. And of course, over time, these priorities are going to change as the city changes. And I understand that. It's a general use tax, and you don't want to be too specific because you want flexibility to be able to deal with the needs and the priorities of future councils and as our population changes. I understand all of that. But I think the way that you dispel skepticism and distrust is to increase clarity. And my recommendation would be to limit this yen for a laundry list and to put it into clearly understandable categories. What you said, I think, makes a lot of sense. The infrastructure, homeless, fire, housing, parks. Maybe I wouldn't do that many. I kind of like the idea of having fire, police, street, sidewalks, but I'm open for other formulations. But I think, and I understand why they do this. They think that they're going to rope in the greatest amount of voters to vote yes, because they're going to find something in this laundry list that's going to appeal to them. I understand that mentality. But I think in the long run, you're going to create distrust. Because when this dilutes accountability, it weakens transparency. It does not do the opposite, in my estimation. My second comment is, between now and November, it seems to me, and I agree with you, that we need to be selling how Measure G is affecting people's lives. And so whether that's billboards or better marketing or whatever, that Measure G has paid for this sidewalk in front of your house being fixed. That's a vote getter right there, right? And I went to the police commission meeting yesterday, and I suggested that the police department, I know, spends a lot of time and resources on outreach and community engagement and education. All that's fantastic, terrific. But I think the way ordinary people think of police, they think about the guy or the woman that's in a patrol car or on a motorcycle bike that's responding to a call or doing traffic enforcement. In the many years I've lived here, I very rarely see police pulling somebody over and issuing a ticket or a citation or a warning or whatever. I understand there's a shortage. I get it. I'm very pro-police. I understand that police in this city is a third rail. You can't say anything about the police without being seen as being anti-police. I am pro-police. What was that? I am pro-police. You want to say it again? Pro-police. But I think if we're going to sell a tax measure that says a lot of your money, and I forget what the percentage was, 30% of the Measure G, or whatever the number is going into the police. I think we need to see that. We need to see that. And we don't, if the money is being spent, a lot of it, to be in middle schools or elementary schools doing outreach, a lot of the people aren't going to see that. But they are going to see a policeman patrolling their neighborhood and pulling people over and doing traffic enforcement on these people that are speeding, running red lights, whatever it is that they're doing. So we need to sell Measure G in a tangible, visible way, in my estimation, to garner votes. All right. I think it's very encouraging that on the 2 slides that dealt with the readiness to support a tax, that our community is 60% and above, or pretty close to that. That's incredibly encouraging for a general tax measure that only needs simple majority to pass. That's very encouraging, incredibly encouraging. And I think this is the time to put a tax measure on the ballot. Normally, you don't do that on midterms, because in midterms you have a smaller population that votes, and it's usually high propensity voters, and those people tend to be older and more conservative, and they tend not to be your target audience for raising taxes or maintaining taxes. But in this particular midterm, because the federal government is doing whatever they're doing, that has a negative impact here in the local, in Salinas, and that's going to drive way more people to the polls this time to register their displeasure about what's going on in Washington and how it affects us here in Salinas, I think. And so a greater population voting, you're going to have lower propensity voters, they tend to be younger, and younger voters tend to see city services as necessary, and they don't have any problems raising taxes in general. So I think the timing is fantastic. So in general, I'm very, very supportive with those caveats. That's all I have.
Thank you for your comments. For myself, I take, I guess, the business perspective. With the firm, I know the 400 people they reached out to got, I think what I would have looked at, I'm sure the city did as well, is how well have this firm done in the past to project the winner? And it sounds like they've done really well. So I think if the 400 was sufficient based on their past experience to project what the outcome would be, then I do feel confident in moving forward with putting the ballot in the measure. Part of the conversation at the city, at the council meeting, was what does transparency mean to somebody? Because I know they mentioned that they don't feel high on transparency. So I think something the city might consider is a survey question for the future is, how do you feel would give you more confidence in the city? What could we do to make you feel like we're being transparent, right? Because I think part of the question is it putting out the budgets? Is it seeing what the money is being spent? I did like the idea of the dashboard, because then you kind of see specifically this money was spent for this park and for this item. I know in the past, because I've been on Measure G for a while, part of it has been the staffing shortage, even within our committees, to kind of get a lot of the reports. So I have seen a huge improvement in being able to kind of accommodate those things. So I hope that kind of continues to improve. Measure G is a general use fund, and at the end of the day, if we want to see certain things get spent, we need to elect city council members that we can kind of give direction, because they're, at the end of the day, they're the ones that approve the budget and get decided on what percentage gets spent for parks, what percentage gets spent for police. So as committee members and also as the public, that's really where we can make the shift in what the city spends the money in, is reaching out to your city council members, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are going to approve the budget, right? We've seen that at city council meetings. There's a budget, the city staff proposes it, city council can make adjustments, say, hey, instead of spending $2 million here, we want you to spend $2 million over there, right? So at the end of the day, that's who really we need to hold accountable if there's certain money that's not being spent. So those are my comments. Okay, and this item is only for consideration. This item is no action item, it's only a presentation item. So now we're going to move to the only consideration item we have for Measure G Oversight Committee.
Apologies, Chair
sorry,
Jacob.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, okay.
Normally, we wouldn't interject, but we do want to provide you with a brief update, too. And then I know our city manager has a few words. So really appreciate everybody's comments through this process. As the project manager for the ballot measure polling and outreach efforts, I do want to kind of share with the committee that we will be having a dashboard and a platform available in the next day or two, probably even today, that may have also a condensed version of the survey for the members of the community to also partake in that process. That public dashboard will live as long as we're able to provide that educational information to the community before the ballot language and the measure is placed on the ballot and is presented to the city council. There was some questions regarding the ballot question itself. As our William and Adam commented, that will come forward to the city council for consideration. Obviously, with our legal counsel review of that ballot question, we'll ensure that it's compliant with the law and it's transparent and it kind of meets a lot of the sentiments from the committee and also from our council and the community. So with that, I'd like to pass it on to our city manager for a few final comments.
Good afternoon, Chair and Commission. So a couple of things. One, I want to ask the question as we move forward before we actually put it on the ballot, because we have to walk a fine line. If you want to have these meetings jointly, we can have a meeting every month till we do that. So I know it's time, but right now we're in the process of developing the budget and how we're going to present, and so it's a phasing in. So we just had one budget. Now we're going to be talking to the council about pivoting to a 2-year budget, where we're able to see sort of a longer runway on things, and certainly from a transparency and confidence building as we move forward, if somebody's able to see a 2-year budget, how we're spending, it's more than just 1 year. So I talked to our finance director. We'll be happy to have the conversation, because a lot of it's the same thing with both ballot measures, though Measure G is obviously the one that generates the most because it's the larger measure. So we will work with the chairs and the committees if you want to have this. If you find this useful, it's supposed to have 2 separate meetings, we can sort of bring it together. And as we're developing this further, presenting this information as we're looking at the language and so forth and things that we're hearing, we can definitely have no problems bringing that to you. So if that's something that would be beneficial, we will work to see if we can schedule. I know you have a meeting in April, but April and May, we're likely going to be to the council, either the second meeting in May or the first meeting in June. And at that point, things pivot for us because we're just providing information. But anything we do cannot be perceived as we're advocating for it. So we have to be real careful. But between now and then, we can certainly work with you and explore some of the, we've heard you, how you want us to see it. And we are actually, our finance department is working now, how do we present next year's budget? And you will see on the dashboard a lot of what we're doing. But if you're seeing things that you think we're not hitting right or missing, please, reach out to us, and we will certainly, our communications team is really kind of now engaged working with their consultants. So if this is useful, we can certainly schedule over the next few months more meetings, and if we have to meet more often, if it's time, I get it. But if this is something that you think would be useful, we'll be more than happy to set it up. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for your comments. And I also want to thank the committee members for serving, because I know it's volunteer time in the mid-afternoon, and your comments are important, as you can tell. They do make changes. So item D, 25-611, appoint a subcommittee to review the 2025 independent audit report. We need 3 members of the committee to review the 2025 independent audit report. Do I have any volunteers who'd like to be on that committee? Okay. Anybody else want to be on the committee? Okay, perfect. Thank you, committee members, for volunteering. Can I get a motion? I'm sorry. Can I get a motion to appoint the 3 committee members?
Chair, before we proceed with that, I'm not sure if Finance Director Selena Ann just wanted to touch base on the review of the independent audit and the appointment of the subcommittee before we proceed with the motion.
Okay.
Thank you, committee chairs and committee members. Selena Andrews, Finance Director. It's a pleasure to be here today. You stole my thunder. Thank you. This is the item that we are talking about is the requirement outlined in section 3294 of the Measure G ordinance is the requirement to put together a subcommittee of 3 members and so that you can review the 2025 annual comprehensive financial report that was just issued in late January. So I think we sent that out to the committee members so that you can all have eyes on it, not just the subcommittee, but definitely available for questions. Thank you.
Okay, my apologies, I rushed through that one. I was like, let's get it done. So is there any questions from the committee member regarding the subcommittee independent audit reports? Committee member Field? Any questions regarding the independent audit? Okay. Mendoza? Salamina?
When we're doing this, I know that I sat on the committee last year for Measure G for the review. Are we keep combining E and G as we did with G separately last year, or are we going to have them separate again? Just so I know what I'm reviewing. I mean, not that it's going to change anything, I just need to know where my math and where things need to be.
Thank you for the question. The review is of Measure G.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Committee members? No? No questions? Okay. And no questions for myself. Any public comments on this item?
Hi, good afternoon. Segura, Montebello community. I had a question. Can anyone else besides on the committee be involved in the oversight committee? Or is it just committee members?
Remember, they usually can't reply to your.
Yeah, I mean, can somebody get back to me? Give me a call, 831-905-0537, or email me at el.big.guerra@gmail.com. I'd like to know, because I'd like to get involved in this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any comments on Zoom? No, no comments on Zoom? Okay, any comments for Measure G Committee? Field?
No.
Okay, Committeemember Mendoza?
No.
Committeemember Salamina?
I think that I don't really have any comments on, I mean, I went through what I could, but I only got it like shortly, so it wasn't really too detailed. So I'll reserve some of my questions, I think, once we all meet, and then, so it's no questions, but thank you so much for the detailed report and all the information. It was a lot.
Thank you, and I will follow it up with an email in
Thank you.
the next day or so.
Okay, fantastic.
Any comments?
General comments or comments on the subcommittee?
Comments on subcommittee?
No comments.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a motion to approve for Field, Mendoza, and Committeemember Salamina to be for the independent audit report? Okay, a second?
I'll second.
Okay, call for the roll.
Calling for the vote to appoint the subcommittee for the review of the 2025 independent audit report. Committee member Field? Yes. Committee member Mendoza?
Yes.
Committee member Salmina?
Yes.
Committee member Salai?
Yes.
Chair Sandoval?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay, the meeting is now adjourned at 4:54 p.m. Thank you, everybody. Have a nice evening.